Hey, happy Thursday everyone. I hope you're all having an amazing week so far, and as we get closer to the weekend, it's going to be actually quite interesting to see exactly where Mission Impossible and, of course, their box office stands at, and how that really is, of course, deeply impacting Indiana Jones 5 and the Dial of Destiny and more. This is Mike Zero. Subscribe if you're new and like this video to see future updates. I'm also on Twitter at Mike01. I thank you all so very much for the great and kind support. And let's get right into what's going on with Disney, Lucasfilm, Kathy Kennedy, and yes, Leslye Headland. Now, you guys may or may not know this, but the main Star Wars show for 2024 is The ACOLYTE. And yes, it is happening. They are eyeing for an April or May release date, give or take, as of where it stands right now. That's what they're aiming for. They also want to debut a trailer by this fall, so expect that around maybe September or October, give or take. But what's really all the more concerning here is exactly what both Kathy Kennedy and Leslye Headland are intentionally doing to George Lucas as a person, as a creator, and exactly what it means for the future of Star Wars and more. Let's get into it. Now, we know that George was banished from the sets of The ACOLYTE and Skeleton Crew. We've talked about this endlessly. That was a thing done all by Leslye Headland, Kennedy, and John Watts. They wanted nothing to do with him on the set because he would only kind of convince others that this is the way to go about doing things when it comes to Star Wars, so they didn't want his interference there. Now, on top of this, with both Kathleen Kennedy and Leslye Headland doubling down with the ACOLYTE series that will get an official release date unveiling by this year's D23, that takes place in September, by the way. One big development coming out of this series has much to do with what Leslye Headland recently did to creator George Lucas with her show. Now, of course, it's described that the ACOLYTE was initially agreed upon between both Kathleen Kennedy and George to have at least one Star Wars Legends cameo character appearance. This promise was recently broken by both Kennedy and Leslye to insert a character codenamed the Collector that is shockingly going to be portrayed by Kathleen Kennedy herself as a very quick, short cameo for the end of the 6th episode of the ACOLYTE. This isn't the first time that Kennedy made a cameo appearance in a George Lucas creation. She also appears in Temple of Doom as one of the dancers in the beginning of that film. The plan by Leslye is to have the Collector offering and selling kyber crystals to the Sith and the Acolytes on a strange new Sith world that will be revealed and will be the new canon Sith world by Leslye Headland. Now, again, guys, what I have to say about this is this is where things get to really peak at pure cringe. The fact that they are literally self-inserting Kathleen Kennedy into the ACOLYTE, I think, is all but confirming now that all these characters that we have seen in Star Wars, all of the female characters that are very, power-driven, are no other than self-inserts of Kathleen Kennedy, and now it's almost being done in a literal sense by Leslye Headland. Now, we know that Leslye is a huge mega fan of both Kathleen Kennedy and Rian Johnson. She believes that The Last Jedi is better than The Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. I mean, that speaks volumes about where Leslye Headland is as a quote-unquote fan, where she's really a fake fan, by the way. She couldn't even list or name a single Star Wars movie when she was making Russian Doll. But I digress. This is where things get even worse, because the ACOLYTE, really, at the end of the day, I know it sounds good on paper. It's all about emerging dark side powers. It's going to be a mystery thriller. It's going to be a different genre for Star Wars, but you got to remember that Leslye Headland made it openly clear that this is going to be the most diverse, the most agenda-driven, by the way, I must add, Star Wars show of all time. Alright, she said that it is going to do just that. It's going to be a very diverse series out of all the history of Star Wars projects. So basically, what it is that if you guys did not like anything Lucasfilm or Disney, this is going to be the peak of pure cringe material. Anyways, moving on. So on top of this, alright, this is where things begin to tumble and get worse, is that another promise that was broken by both Kennedy and Lucas was that Yoda was supposed to appear in the show. That actually, of course, was taken out by Kathleen Kennedy and left Lucas upset and end in heated arguments with Disney, and that Leslie's explanation, story-wise, is that Yoda is off-world from Coruscant in semi-retirement during the end of the High Republic era. CG Yoda was planned to return once again, not Puppet Yoda, just like in the prequels, to use as a callback to George Lucas's movies. But Kennedy decided to cancel that to keep Yoda out of the show from overshining some of the new characters to be introduced on the Jedi Council, 200 years before The Phantom Menace, give or take. Leslye and her plan is to completely divert from George's philosophy of Star Wars and what it was all built on, as Leslye wants to build her own version of it all. Now, look, here's another problem about this that I think a lot of fans need to realize, is that Leslye Headland is a very radical person. She doesn't really care what people think. She even went on stage, go ahead and look it up at Star Wars Celebration 2023, that Star Wars changed her life, and yet she goes on to fake cry, doesn't even explain how it saved her life, goes on to say that she's a massive Expanded Universe fan, doesn't make an Expanded Universe show, and mix that with what she could not name a single Star Wars movie years ago, just goes to show you. I mean, it really does. So, there's a lot of things happening here with Lucasfilm. And I think that this is going to kill the momentum if AHSOKA does not meet expectations. Forget about it. 2024 is dead in the water, because we all know that ACOLYTE is going to be a dumpster fire. It's the truth. I'm not trying to just put negative words out there. That is literally what it's going to be. It's going to be a dumpster fire. It's not going to be good. I'm not looking forward to it. I had a lot of things to talk about this show, and I decided not to talk about this show. But there is a lot of things going on with this movie that are really going to upset a lot of fans. And maybe I will touch on this a little bit later, but it really is something that I think is going to be worse. Yes, worse than The Last Jedi Backlash. For multiple reasons. Everyone's over Luke now getting wrecked. You know, that's a thing of the past. But The Acolyte is a different story. This is really all about stripping down George's philosophy, truly, deeply, and replacing it with something else. So, first they destroyed Luke, now it's all about destroying the true essence of Star Wars. The Acolyte is gonna wreck that. That's Leslie's mission. I mean, this is coming from somebody that said if you look forward to George coming in the room only, you're a misogynist. She literally said that on a podcast. Multiple times, mind you. And yeah, it matches up with everything. And it just goes to show you that there needs to be some kind of regulation over Leslye Headland and Kathleen Kennedy and what they are doing with the Acolyte. Period. The end. So anyways, guys, drop a comment below. Fill me in below in the comments what you all have to say about this. And if you guys did enjoy the content for today, make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel, and I will catch you guys next time.
From night to moon.